Welcome to High Impact Growth. I'm your co host, Amie Vaccaro. Today, we are rounding out a three-part deep dive into Dimagi's strategy of sustaining exponential growth. So, one of the key considerations for this strategy is that we'll continue to invest in self service, our backbone for exponential growth. When we talk about self service, we're really talking about CommCare, Dimagi's flagship offering. It's a customizable digital platform for frontline work anywhere in the world. CommCare is available open source, and we also offer it with a software as a service or SaaS subscription. Currently, there are hundreds of organizations that are subscribing to CommCare on a self service basis, which means that they can build their own applications using CommCare. So, as an example, during the early days of COVID-19, this self service offering allowed organizations to quickly build and adapt their own COVID-19 applications. In previous episodes, you've heard us talk a bit about the public sector and some of the ways that we don't think it's working properly, such that the more impact you generate does not equal more revenue. But this is actually not the case in our software as a service business. So it's one of the few parts of our business where financial feedback loops can actually work to create more impact. So what I mean by that is that if CommCare actually solves our customers' problems, they'll buy CommCare. And this allows us to invest in things like customer success and building more impactful features. And these features can then drive more value to the people that we serve, creating greater impact. So for today's episode, John and I talked to Dave Moray, Senior Director of Product at Dimagi. Dave is responsible for the CommCare roadmap and product development. So he's going to share how he's thinking about scaling CommCare to 1 million users, and specifically about how we're making it most useful as an enterprise technology platform for both data collection and service delivery for large international non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. I want to start asking you a couple questions. So, how did you find Dimagi and what made you join?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me. Yeah. So before joining the Magi, I was a product management person. I worked mostly in the payments industry, building products that make mobile payments easier. And I did that for about 5, 6 years. And before that, yeah, I was, in similar roles in different industries. But I got to a point where I wanted to spend all my time and effort into building tools that impact millions of users, and B, impact users that are doing meaningful things. So Clayton recently articulated this very well, and I use this kind of like as a part of my story where I wanted to work on products for not the most profitable users, but for the most important human beings. And that propelled me into figuring out how I could do that. And naively, I thought that, hey, in order for me to do that, I should probably go back to school. And so I applied to a bunch of like masters in public administration, public policy program, and I got rejected by all, thankfully. But interestingly, what happened was just a month after the Dimagi's job posting for a product manager popped up on my LinkedIn feed. And interestingly, the job posting was essentially the essay that I written to all the schools in terms of what I wanted to do with education. So I don't know, John, if you remember, but I pinged John on LinkedIn, and then I asked him, like, "Just give me a project over the weekend." So John scrambled to a bunch of people asking for a project. So he did give me a project, which I turned around over the weekend, and yeah, in a week's time I had the job. So yeah, it was a lot of good luck, essentially.
That's amazing. And I feel like that story is actually such good advice for job seekers, right? Just get in there, do a project, show what you can do, and let your work speak for itself.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was interviewing with a couple of organizations, and I was going through the whole exercise of, asking or fielding theoretical questions. So I just thought, like, hey, it'd be nice for John and I to chat about something like meaningful that is relevant to the product, and also like chat about other things. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
And so I'm personally like, the longest I've been at one organization is I think 4 years. It's embarrassing to even say. I've definitely done some job hopping, and you've been here for 5 years now. What's kept you here all those 5 years?
I mean, the same reason that got me here. We haven't gotten to 1 million users yet. So I'm not going anywhere until we get there. Yeah, and then we just have a fascinating culture. Everybody's like very empowered to push for things that they believe in, and we have an excellent leadership team. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I can't think of anything else that I could do with my time that would be this enjoyable. And over the last couple of years, I've also gotten into impact investing, and I support my sister's organization in India that provides services to children with disabilities. I also advise other, similar organizations in India. So I'm really happy with the field or the sector that I'm in, and there's so much to be done. So Dimagi kind of fits into that personal desire and mission really well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, Dimagi is quite ambitious, and as are you. So I see that alignment, and that kind of, you mentioned the trying to get to 1 million users. That ties nicely into the topic for today. This is a series of conversations around our 5 year strategies. These strategies are built on, learnings and things we've known for a long time, but really just articulating them. So one of these strategies is sustain exponential growth. And within that, there's a handful of considerations. And one of those is we will continue to invest in self service, our backbone for exponential growth. And I know, Dave, that you really sit at the center of these efforts as head of product. So I'm curious to hear what does this consideration mean to you, and what has it looked like, and how has it evolved over the years?
Got it. So you mean in the past 5 years that I've been at Dimagi, the most exponential growth that we have noticed is in our enterprise strategy, where we enable international NGOs to adopt CommCare at a global level, where they institutionalize CommCare in a way where they build a central CommCare team, and then we engage with that CommCare team to unlock further capacity building and further success. I think that model is going to be incredibly key to our success. What happens is when we build such enterprise relationships, it creates the right level of intimacy between us and our partner organizations, where we are deeply embedded in their both short-term and long-term strategy, which allows us the ability to optimize our product and services in alignment with their strategy so that we can unlock their success and growth efficiently. It also allows us to build capacity into that core central CommCare team, and they further build capacity down to the regional or country office level. So our enterprise strategy has definitely seen significant growth, and like I mentioned, it is something that we'll be heavily investing in the next 5 years as well. In
Can
alignment to that, a lot of our product work has been around enabling such organizations to easily adopt CommCare at the global level. So in the last 5 years, we have essentially improved the ability for organizations to administer and the rollout of CommCare at the global level. We have doubled down on our enterprise user management capabilities through features like single sign-on. We have made it easier for organizations to deploy content solutions, so where they can build once and deploy to many country offices through capabilities like the enterprise release management. And there's a lot on the roadmap around just making it easier and easier for organizations to truly adopt CommCare like you adopt email. And that is one of my bits to get CommCare to a point where in iNGOs, it's as commonplace and central as using email.
Dave, is there an example you could give? What does that look like to adopt CommCare at an enterprise level? And how does that team work? And how does that sort of tie into this self-service notion?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the most the most recent and significant example of IRC.
Quick aside here for those listening who may have not heard of the IRC. IRC is the International Rescue Committee. They are an NGO that helps people that have been affected by humanitarian crises, including the climate crisis, to survive, recover, and rebuild their lives.
So IRC, before they establish an enterprise relationship with us, they were using CommCare across 15, 20 countries. And of course, they work in 40 odd countries with 200 plus programs. So their way of operating was very decentralized, and there was a lot of demand internally for tools like CommCare, but they didn't have a central strategy to provision CommCare to all their staff. So a year and a half or 2 years ago, when they adopted our CommCare offering, that led to creation of their own internal CommCare team, which consists of folks from IT, folks from Merle.
MERL stands for Monitoring, Evaluation, Research, and Learning.
And once such an enterprise relationship gets established, we have a cadence of quarterly calls where we familiarize ourselves with what the organization is trying to do, and that was similar with IRC. So that translated into IRC having a lockdown pricing structure so that they know what their costs are going to be today, and also in a year's timeline when they have more countries using CommCare. So that makes just the planning for CommCare significantly easier. Other than that, they got access to all our capabilities, which does significant improvements to building into organizational capacity. Before enterprise, we used to get a lot of complaints from IRC where somebody from HQ is responsible to build capacity, complaining that I can't train people effectively because half the capabilities I want to train them on, they don't have access to them because they are on a free software plan or, a lower plan that doesn't have those capabilities. So enterprise gave everybody access to all capabilities that just did wonders to their internal ability to build a capacity.
What are what are some of those capabilities? Like, what are their like, even before they came in with this enterprise plan, you're saying that their staff were wanting CommCare. Like, what were they using it
Mhm.
for?
So most of their demand came from their monitoring and evaluation team that needed digital tools, frontline tools that actually work in the field, and specifically for longitudinal data tracking, where an enumerator enrolls a beneficiary, and then that beneficiary is monitored over time. And yeah, and then CommCare, you know, fit into those needs really well because of our case management capabilities. We are very well known in our sector for our deep case management capabilities, which go above and beyond just the ability to register somebody and follow them over time. We have a lot of the depth of a case management capabilities is like second to none, and that leads to the effectiveness. There are a lot of capabilities that organizations don't realize that they would need. Like for example, the simple ability where multiple frontline workers can collaborate on the same caseload. And, that's, bread and butter CommCare use case. And once the IRC country office teams had access to that, everybody started using it. So, yes, I would say to summarize, I mean, the M&E teams, the local M&E teams needed, powerful frontline tools that were flexible enough to meet their specific workflows and tools that are actually effective on the field. And CommCare addressed those needs really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So IRC, who's serving, millions and millions of people around the world with varying services, they're able to effectively kind of deliver those services to individuals, track those cases over time, and then collect data back on the impact of those services. So they can then be reporting back to their donors and their organization on the impact that they've had and optimize it over time.
And for a lot of our enterprise customers like IRC that Dev was alluding to, the amount of programming work they have is vast. I mean, the staff in countries almost consistently under capacity. There's always more projects and more impact they wish they had time to create. And a lot of the work that we've done over the last couple of years has been to recognize we need to minimize the amount of time it takes to build a high impact application in CommCare, both in terms of how an entire enterprise rolls it out across their enterprise, how they support their country offices, and how those country offices support their field staff. And so a lot of those features Dev alluded to, they're really about trying to lower the amount of total effort that has to go into creating these high impact solutions that can really drive and amplify the impact of an IRC in the field while trying to either maintain the current effort and reach more users or lower the effort per user. And one of those two things must be true if we're going to achieve sustained exponential growth.
So to feed into exponential growth, improvements to CommCare either need to help our partners reach more users and create more impact with the same level of effort, or they need to lower the effort to create impact.
And so as we think a lot about what Dev said on the enterprise features and how to build them once, deploy many, or some of the data analytics tools and data pipeline tools we just released, these all are about lowering the effort that needs to go in to achieve the same impact or unlocking more impact with the same amount of effort. And that's really core to our strategy from product positioning with how we're going to achieve that sustained exponential growth.
What does product development look like going forward as you continue to support this exponential growth?
So like I mentioned, I mean, we're definitely gonna double down on our enterprise strategy. So I think in order to get there, we will have to continue investing in our enterprise capabilities that makes it easier and easier for organizations to adopt CommCare at a global level. Another theme that is going to be of significant value towards our enterprise strategy is investing in our data and analytics ecosystem. One of the things that we have learned working with our enterprise partners is in a given organization, staff comes in with a lot of different skill set for data use, and those skill sets evolve very rapidly. Along with that, needs for data use within an organization also vary across teams, across country offices, and those needs also evolve very quickly. Like we all know there are country offices or programs that are required to send data to DHIS2. We know there are country offices that don't want to use anything besides Excel, and then we know there are teams that are obsessed with using Power BI. And how do you create an analytics ecosystem for an enterprise that caters to these realities? And how do you create an analytic ecosystem that allows these organizations to operate in a way where 80% of the data needs are fulfilled by self-service data tools that don't require any IT support? And for the remainder 20% complex data needs, they have flexible and powerful dev tools to build custom data pipelines. So our analytic ecosystem has been designed with these realities in mind. And we plan to, further invest into the ecosystem. Over the last couple of years, we've added, turnkey integrations with like Power BI, Tableau, DHIS2. We are actually working on adding a Google Sheets integration. Very soon, we'll start working on adding turnkey integration with tools like Stata or SPSS. So I think our intentionality around how we build the data tooling ecosystem such that it truly aligns with the needs of a given NGO at the global level, I think is going to be very key to our success.
Awesome. John, what about you? What are you looking forward to in terms of product development for CommCare?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting areas that Dev mentioned. And one of the keys, which is something that we didn't necessarily think was true in the last couple of years, but that has felt like it really came together. All those features that Dave just mentioned for enterprise customers, large nonprofits and for-profits that we support globally, those are the same features governments are now asking for. Because governments are deploying across tens of thousands of users, and they want to have some flexibility on how the app is deployed at the district level. And the district offices have different tools they're using to connect data pipelines to. And there's a different ecosystem of products on the ground, so they need more intricate API integrations. So I think our industry previously, several years ago, was kind of looking at these national scale programs like a single digital solution that was going to work across the entire national workforce. And all these features that we've been building in that help enterprises scale globally, help governments scale nationally.
Just a quick sidebar here on national scale that John mentions. A national scale program would be where CommCare is used across an entire country's health or other frontline workforce. And we're actually going to be talking about national scale specifically in an episode to come. So look out for that.
And so that's something that we're really excited about, as a lot of our government partners have started to scale beyond, thousands of users into the tens of thousands of users. And we now have that experience of running these projects, some for over a decade, but many for multiple years. And we're seeing multiple different versions and multiple user types and multiple versions of the application for urban versus rural users and things like that. These features are all kind of coalescing in a very convenient way that's aligning the product roadmap. And so that's some of the areas I'm most excited about. Also, I think the goal that we have for strategic priority 1 in our 5-year strategy, better jobs for better outcomes, that's something I've always been excited about. And it's something that Dave and I have really talked about in terms of what creates a better job for the frontline worker, what creates a better job for the M&E officer. Technology is obviously only one part of that puzzle, but how does that play a role across the product roadmap? And I've always enjoyed, when we sync on different product priorities, how we think about the impact it's going to have. And it's something that we've been very fortunate to be successful enough as an organization that we can really make core product investments that achieve that. I think just thinking that this notion that all of these features are coming together, because there's always this kind of like cascade of capacity. There's a cascade of skill building. There's increasingly complex applications. And we've built such an amazing set of capabilities in the platform that allow us to handle, 5 NGOs running the same app in a country that don't share data, 5 districts that do share data, one app that runs across 10,000 users, one app that's supported by Dimagi staff and our NGO partners, and all those different configurations, I think, are increasingly possible with all the capabilities we've added and are going to add. And I think that's really exciting as well.
Thanks to Dave and John for today's episode. I hope you found that peek under the hood of CommCare's product development interesting. As a quick recap, today we talked about how we're building CommCare to support self-service so that we can sustain exponential impact growth. We talked about making CommCare easier to use at an enterprise level across a large iNGO. And we also talked about the ways in which we're improving how CommCare supports a large M&E ecosystem of data tools. And we also heard how those same functionalities can also support government and national scale use cases of CommCare. Thanks again for listening, and please do follow, rate, and subscribe. And do send any questions or ideas you have to podcast@dimagi.com. Thanks so much.